So today we have Brooke Haynes, and Brooke Haynes has just recently joined our team at One Voice Evolving. But she has a fascinating lived experience and story about adoption in America that is something we haven't touched on in this podcast. And I think that our viewers, women over 40 who want to advance racial equity in our lifetime and who want to see what later after 40 looks like if you're in the messy middle of it. I just thought it'd be a great time to introduce you to the audience and learn more about you, Brooke.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for having me. I love the way you said the messy middle because that's how I came out with my podcast network named Liminal, the Liminal Network. So it's the messy middle in between. And I feel like in some ways we're always in the messy middle because as soon as we come through the other side, here we go back into another, right?
Oh, yeah,
So
changes.
I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was adopted at birth. So I was 3 days old when I was adopted. And I was adopted by two well-meaning, well-loving parents, two white parents. I'm a white woman, and two white parents. And I had an older brother who was 5.5 years older than me, who was adopted as well. When for him it was 30 days. 30 days. A birth mother has a chance to change their mind within 30 days. So my mother was a little nervous to bring him home until that 30-day period was over. But unlike him, she did bring me home immediately. And I think that's a big part of the story. So I wanted to make sure I put that in there.
Okay. And what do you think? What did you see as the lived experience difference for you and your brother?
So my birth mother held me and breastfed me the first 3 days. And then I was put into the arms of my parents.
Okay.
And I have done where I went and visited back when I was a baby and can relive those experiences. Um, and that's how I recall it as well. I did sit in, there was more than just immediate handover. There was some time lapse, but not much. Where my brother went into a foster home for 30 days, we don't know what happened to him, but of course, we have personality differences, we have DNA different, we have all the differences, but he doesn't like to be touched. And he
Mm.
doesn't like, even at the age of 5, when my mom would go in to hold him or hug him, he would pull back a little.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just his personality, but I really have a feeling has a lot to do with the way we spent our first 30 days.
Mhm.
He may have just laid in a crib or didn't get but the necessity or minimal attention. That's
Mhm.
just a perspective. That's what I feel might be true. But for me, I went from a situation where she breastfed me and held me and loved me, and I went straight into the arms of my parents.
Nice, nice. Have you done any research or seen any research on that early bonding with infants and mothers?
I have. I've done a lot when it came to just being a parent, not necessarily in the adoption perspective, but just as a parent perspective. And they have a lot of research now that we can all go look for that talks about that first bonding and moments. And it does bring up a little something different. I got to bond
Yeah.
and then I left. That brings on a whole nother thing, then don't know how to bond.
Yeah.
That now we're getting now we're you can see where these pathways start to move forward in life. Where if we fast forward 40 years later,
Mhm.
I'm the one who won't commit in a relationship because people just leave, kids leave, everybody leaves, right? He is very loyal and he stays and he won't leave because he will not do that to somebody.
Gotcha.
And he,
Right, right.
yeah.
And it matters. I think about my birth story, and my birth story was that my mother rejected me at birth, and I was the youngest of five. And she went home and left me in the hospital those first 10 days. And when I came home, a child of the 50s, it was, Dr. Spock all the way. And so there were rigid 4-hour feeding schedules, and there's no comfort in between, and there's no anything. And it has taken me a lifetime to deconstruct those stories and to be able to receive the kind of love that I chased for 50 years.
Wow, yes.
Oh
See,
yeah.
and herein lies where life gets so messy
Yes.
is that I hear people say in the adoption world the same things I hear the people say in the biological world. I always knew I didn't belong to my parents. There was something different. Well, what teenager doesn't feel like they belong to their parents? And there's
Right.
something different.
Uh,
So I am open-minded enough to accept that when we're in the adoption community and we adoptee community and we're thinking from our adoptive perspectives, that is valid and it is true. It does, and for us, it is because we're adopted and that's the truth. But that doesn't mean people who aren't adopted don't experience very similar things.
So you are the first person I've ever met who even was in an adoptive community or even knew anything about that. And I had a historian who said that when sometimes when people do their genealogy, do their DNA and all that, they find out that the boy they thought was dad wasn't dad.
Oh, yes.
Surprise! And then all of a sudden, all those that framing of a lifetime has to be reconsidered, right?
Absolutely. That what a what a journey there. I remember my best friend who was not adopted, so I thought, up until the fifth grade, and her coming across her paperwork and finding out that she was adopted to a different man. I mean, she was born to a different man,
Uh-huh.
and she had to go ask questions. And this man raising her was her stepdad.
Uh-huh.
And so she went on this journey in the fifth grade. I have, and in the adoptive community, we call them LDAs, late discovery adoptees.
Okay.
The way that that can mess up identity, I mean, it can really, really make you rethink a lot of things. I don't understand why anyone would do that to someone, but almost all the time, it's a well-meaning parent that thought they were doing the right thing.
Right.
They're just not educated. See, back in this baby boom era, the baby scoop era, I'm
Mhm.
47, I'm a Gen X,
Mhm.
and back in there and then right after me, it was huge to go to the international, which we'll get into, adoptees.
Right.
During that time, these parents were just people who wanted babies. They were just loving parents that wanted babies. There were
Mhm.
no education. There was no education about what it meant when you really bring on a child in adoption. And
Uh-huh.
I'm very, very fortunate in 2019, I think it was, I met her. It was either 2018 or 2019 to have met a woman on the West Coast who founded and is in Adoption Mosaic. We met because we were talking business together. And then when she heard the story and I heard what she did, I told her my story, and boom. And before I know it, we have worked together ever since. And we have thousands of adoptees. We work with adoptive parents. It's more on the line of not therapy, community. And she does do consulting for parents who do have adoptions or who are adoptive parents. However, I just wanted to wrap this up part up to say that in this, we have a lived panel, lived experience every month. We have socials, we have courses, and we bring in adoptees and adoptive parents, and then we do things separately. And I'm not live in every one of those. That's not my role. But to hear the debriefs, to experience everything said, to be a part of all the panels, it's a really needed thing that people need to know what they're getting into when they adopt a child.
Right. And
Mm.
what about the child when it finds out in the fifth grade or it becomes of age at 18 and decides to go find their adoptive parent? I've not had that experience myself, but in our family, whether it's by estrangement or adoption, I have a niece who had no contact with her father because he was imprisoned. And before she found the courage or the freedom from her mother, who was my sister, to go do the search, he had already passed. So she connected to family and extended family and found some stories and some sense of her identity that way. But that truth delayed
Yes.
by 30 years of life and life experiences and choices made without having the full picture, Not that any of us does, because our parents only see what we only see what they want us to see as children anyway.
That is true. And I like to always err that people are well-meaning, but man, do they mess up so much. We mess up each other so much. And I'm on a unique side where I'm an adoptee and I'm a birth mother, which I know we'll get into, but I believe that my that experience being on both sides has helped me tremendously in why I wouldn't, why I understand I would never, okay, let me just repeat that. Why I did go find my birth mom, why I did want to reconnect, why I did understand what she was feeling when she found me, things of that
Mhm.
nature. And when we're only on one side of it, it is such a different dynamic. And
Mhm.
I don't know if now's the time to get into it, but it
Yeah,
is
leave
okay.
there. Go
So,
ahead.
as a child who
Yeah.
had great parents,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't missing anything.
Hmm.
I was curious. It was fun to think about. There was
Yeah.
an actress that I really related to. I think her name was Julie or Juliana. She had curly, dark black hair. And I had read in my adoptive papers that she had curly brown hair. So I always thought I wondered if it's her, when I would see people that looked like that, I would wonder, but I never longed for meeting her because I wasn't deficient. I didn't think, because I
Yeah.
didn't know as a kid that
Yeah.
there was anything missing.
Right.
Now, so I thought maybe one day I'd go find her. Maybe I wouldn't. I didn't need to, but I might. Now, fast forward as a birth mother,
Uh,
you give birth, and this umbilical cord then goes off to nothing.
yeah.
And there's a huge part of you that's missing. Something it's undeniable that it happened. You're always wondering, always questioning, always thinking about that person. Or if you have different coping skills, maybe not. Maybe you're shutting it down, turning it off. But I was always very expressive once I got out of the house. And I
Mhm.
was always very expressive about my story, which I think helped healing. But it wasn't until the day I was driving down the road and I thought, if if my birth mom thought about me half as much as I think about my child,
Yeah.
I gotta go find her and tell her I'm okay. Tell her
Oh,
thank you. Tell her. And that's what made me reach out and find my birth mom.
wow. Was it
Mhm.
difficult to find?
In my case, I'm from Tennessee, and it was a year or two after the big floods, and they weren't sure if they were going to find my records.
Uh-huh.
And when they did, it was like almost a year. My
Mhm.
mom and I were actually in probably one of the hardest parts of our relationship. We were barely talking. We had gotten into a huge argument. I think it was our first huge argument.
Mhm.
And I lived in Louisville. She lived in Knoxville. And it was almost like the worst timing ever. But I also knew I couldn't find her without telling her.
Yeah.
Like some people are different. I've heard people say, I want this to be my experience without someone around
Mhm.
affecting that experience. So I'm going to do this secretly first and then let them know. And I totally understand that. But
Uh-huh.
for me, that's how it went down. So I called her up and I said, Mom, I know that we're not in a healthy place in our relationship right now, but I have to tell you something. I have started searching for my birth mother and they have found her, or they have my papers. They have papers. And that story is kind of cool because I do end up going down to Nashville and opening up, and I sit in this conference room to open up all my records. And she said, "Here are your pre-adoption. Here's your adoption, and here's post-adoption." I didn't think too much about it, but I wondered what possibly could be in a post-adoption. So I'm reading it. I'm trying to get out of there, but because I want to take the paperwork and leave. But she was sitting there with Kleenexes. And then I go over to the post-adoption. And it said, "Hi, I'm Brooke Haynes." It was stamped like February. I used to have this memorized, February something. "Hi, I'm Brooke Haynes. I'm looking to open up my records." Flip the page. "Hi, I'm Kim. I'm looking to open up my records." She started looking for me 6 weeks after I started looking for her. And every paper was mine, then hers, then mine, then hers.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. And so I knew she was looking for me. And at that time, I had to sign that I would not contact her. They would if I wanted to contact her. So I signed off my right. Of course, I won a lot of money for it, but I signed off my rights not to contact her. And I took the records and I ran. And my friend's like, well, you signed your rights, but I didn't sign anything. So I had a friend who made the call for me
That's
and
great.
and made a bunch of questions. Like she wanted to make sure that it was really her,
That's
right?
what
Like,
good friends are for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she asked her about my birth name first. She's like, "Do you know a woman named?" It was my birth name and all. And so she vetted her enough to know that she was talking to the right person.
Okay.
And and I had looked her up on Google, not
Mhm.
her name, but her house, her address on Google. And it went to a wrong place because she was just building. And I saw this big old huge truck with this huge antenna. And I'm like, I'm a redneck. Yeah, I'm a redneck, Turns out that wasn't her car. But I was ready to embrace it, I was like, yes, I'm a redneck. But anyway, so my friend connected us. She's like, well, she just started looking for you. And she gets on the phone, and I'll never forget her voice. I wanted to like keep shoving it in my ear. Like I wanted it could not go in my head enough. I just listened to the messages over and over again that she had left me, and um, her voice was like harmony in my body, and I couldn't believe it. I never thought, this is not. I wasn't looking for something because I thought it was missing.
Right.
I was looking just to tell her thank you.
Mhm.
On the flip side, this is kind of a cool story. She started looking because she said, I kept my name, my original name, my maiden name until you hit 30. And because if you wanted to come look for me, you would. Then when you turned 30, I was like, I told myself that you would not come if you hadn't came yet. And
Mhm.
then she had a friend who had tickets to go see, I'm starting to lose the name. Bobby, somebody, he's dead now. Bobby Drennan, Bobby Drennan. He's a psychic. And
Okay.
it's a 2-year waiting list. And you don't tell them your names. You call in, they give you a number. Well, when her friend was called, the second ticket that she had, the girl said, I don't want to go. And so they turned and looked at Kim and was like, do you want to go? So she's like, sure. So they didn't even know, they really didn't know she was showing up, right? So she showed up and she goes this place and she walks in and she said he's sitting there drawing and all this is recorded, by the way. He's in there drawing and he said, tell me about your children. And she said, well, I have one daughter and she has a daughter that's 10 years younger than me. And she said, well, I see more. I see one that's on a different side. He's in a different world. Well, it was her miscarriage.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then she said, what about, there's another one. And she's like, nope, nope. And she said, there's another one. That's in this world. And she said, well, I placed a girl for adoption. She said, that's her. And she just started looking for you.
Oh,
And she said, you need to look for her because she just started looking for you. And when she left, when she started to leave, then they had a whole session. And when she left, he said, hey, by the way, if you don't find her, all she wants to do is to let you know that she is thankful and that she said she had a nice life, she had a great life, and thank you. So he knew the message I was trying to give her. But she did find me and we did reunite. But it was like, it's just one of those really fun stories.
yeah. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
everybody gets to have a fun story. And so, yeah.
And so how does that, and what did that do to your nuclear family, you, your brother, and did that have any ripple effect back into your family?
It did. My mother, who I love dearly, has always struggled in motherhood with um, confidence.
Mhm.
I'm just, that's just I'm just going to say.
Yeah.
And especially around being a mother and being my mother, right?
Mhm.
I never understood it until years later when I had my son. And she said, for the first year of my brother's adoption and my adoption, these people came in to evaluate her.
Oh.
And at any point, she thought they could take us away. And my brother had colic. So
Oh.
she's like, I thought if he was a crying baby, they might take him away. And when you came along, she hid me because I had this big head of hair. And so she hid me when we went out in public under a blanket. So people wouldn't someone might see me and want me back or
Mhm.
anything like that. And I thought after being a mother, how hard that is mentally, emotionally, physically. If I had someone evaluating me and a fear of them taking him away, the government, the city, child
Mhm.
family services is evaluating me once a month, I could see where the insecurities would kick in.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
that's its own
so,
trauma.
yeah, yeah. So me finding her was definitely not something that she was comfortable with.
Hmm. Yeah.
She wanted to be supportive.
Yes.
She wanted to be there for me, but she still to this day, I don't really talk about it much with her
Yeah.
because she wants to be, but she is insecure. I had a stepmother for 35 years, so I have moms all over the place, but no one is my mom, right? Except my mom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of insecurity from different, lots of reasons around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Um,
messy middle all its own.
it was, I
Yeah.
have lots of fun family dynamics. So
Hmm.
my dad, oh, goody. I can't wait to meet her. I'm so excited. And at the time I was dating a man who's now a friend from India, and I was going to go to India. We already had it planned. I was leaving like in a week or 10 days when I met her, when I got on the phone with her for the first time. And he said, Brooke, you have to meet her before you go to India. You need to know who you are when you go to India, which I thought was absurd because I'm like, I don't need to know anything before I go to India. I know who I am, you know. But I thought it was very interesting to see how he looked at this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how his perspective of all this was. My extended family, aunts and uncles, they were all there when we all met.
Hmm.
And my aunt was crying because when she was talking to my birth mom, she would have the same hand gestures.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she'd just start crying. She's like, I feel like I'm talking to Brooke.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a very interesting. So that was very interesting. Who else? Her family, her friends were very supportive. Her
Uh-huh.
daughter, it was very hard on her only daughter for at first. We're great now.
Yeah.
And and I think her husband wanted to be supportive and he was just real confused.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Tell me that wasn't news to him.
I'm sorry. Ask me that question.
I said, tell me that wasn't news to him that she had had a child.
No, no, no. She
Okay.
told him on their date,
Okay. There you
were
go.
they ever married, that she said she had placed a daughter for adoption, and if I ever came back into her life, she
Mhm.
needs to be with someone who could accept me.
There you go. Okay.
Yep. And I've done the same thing. Every time I date someone and it starts to get serious, I have
Mhm.
expressed the same
Mhm.
desire.
Yeah. Yeah. Good deal. Good. So this organization that you're in, and you made a alluded to it. It was the
The name of it's Adoption Mosaic. Mhm.
right. But there was this when you were born, you were the last of that, and then they started international adoptions, got to be
Oh,
big.
I'm okay. Let me clear that up a little bit.
Okay.
Adoption Mosaic is actually a business that I've helped. I'm a business coach for the
Okay.
last 6 years. Now she has been doing the work though for 30 years.
Okay.
So I'm really embedded in a community of adoptees. But I was born into the child and family service system. Oh, I was born once
True.
the adoption was from Child and Family Services here in America.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have exposure, but you mentioned this wave of adoptions that happen, international adoptions. I don't know
Yes.
anything about this history.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. So there was this opens up, I think it was in the 90s, early 90s. Maybe
Mhm.
it was even the 80s. They
Yeah.
call it the baby scoop. I don't
The
I should
baby
know
scoop.
that. I
Okay.
should know that statistic, but I don't. What year? When they started going into you know, Colombia, China,
China, I
uh,
remember. Yeah.
Ethiopia was in the 90s, and
Mhm.
they call it the baby scoop. They were just scooping the babies.
There
And
weren't a lot of churches behind that. I mean,
I,
where I knew about it, it was. It was a
Ton of churches.
church movement almost. Okay.
Yes. And
Interesting.
I don't know where to really go with this because if I keep present with that fact,
Yep.
they came over because there weren't enough babies here in the US to adopt, and
Mhm.
people want babies.
Yes.
So they came over and adopt. And the lady who runs Adoption Mosaic was one of those children. She came over at 4 from Colombia, and
Okay.
her sister.
Hmm.
And now there was this big scoop of these I can hardly say the word rural, rural, rural.
Rural. Yeah.
Thank you,
Rural.
America, that was bringing in people from different countries, and all of these um, people from different countries with different skin colors, with different cultures, were being brought up around all white people.
Right.
And what do the parents say? Oh, it's just color. I don't even see it.
Right.
I love you no matter what.
Uh-huh.
That don't mean doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah.
But all the things a parent would say if they weren't
Right.
educated enough to understand what was happening with this child. And
Hmm.
I'm just going to give you a little dose of
Okay.
how to look at how a one perspective of this. The lady who runs Adoption Mosaic does this really powerful thing. She saw a magazine article on a plane once of all white, like Christmas trees, but they're all white. And it
Hmm.
was a natural forest, by the way. And, and then there was one green Christmas tree in it. And she
Hmm.
rips out that article. And this was about forest, right? Like this was
Yeah.
nothing about anything else. She rips out that article and starts using this picture. And when she does these specific events every year, goes into the adoptee kids, their kids, and she says, how do you think the green tree is feeling? And then she goes into the adoptive parents.
Yeah.
She said, how do you think the green tree is feeling? And what do you think they're saying? And the adoptive parents are like, you're one of us. We love you no matter what. We don't look at, I mean, they just, the list of endless things that you think as a good hearted person you would say.
Yeah.
But in the kids, they're like, why do I look different than everybody? What's wrong with me? How do I hide? And it's just an endless amount of things that are so different. And, the perspectives, and you
Yeah.
can tell that and they just come up with them so fast.
Hmm.
And then she pulls them together and she pulls them either together or she takes them to the parents and says, this is what the kids say. And the
Hmm.
parents are mortified. But
Hmm.
by now they've been raising these children for a while, and it's just now opening their mind that, oh, wow, I have a child who is doesn't want to be just blend in
Hmm.
because you don't blend in. We need to, you don't just blend in. So, we have 3 adoptive kids. One is from China, 2 are from US, but everybody thinks there's one adoptive kid. They
Hmm.
assume the other ones are natural.
Hmm.
All the things that go on and how that affects this culture of adoptees is what, the estrangement ends up in today's statistics. There's 52% estrangement that ends up happening with those families with transracial adoptions.
Okay. Okay.
Now, there's different statistics for other kinds of families, but that's the highest one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're unpacking our childhood no matter what. And
Sure.
then to unpack all of that too at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have a lot of those children, or now they're not children anymore, but they were children back then that say, they were raised by people who were racist and didn't even know they were racist.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking when people back then, there wasn't even any education about it. You didn't educate the parents. It was all about assimilation. You bring
Yes.
them in, you teach them how to be American, you teach them how to be white. Oh, not white? Oh, and some of them who came from different countries were violently taken from their parents. So they had trauma they came in with that nobody knew anything about how to deal with either.
100%. I didn't know if we wanted to go down that lane because that's one of my favorites. It is.
Perfect. We
So
want to go down all the lanes.
all that we go down all the lanes. Okay. So yes. And gosh, that just spread my mind in so many places because that's what happened to her. What happened is this was a black market. This ended
Yeah.
up being exposed. It's still today being exposed. Okay. It was a black market of kids, and they started getting messy and getting the older these kids got, the more the kids are remembering. So we
Yeah.
have this community of kids that remember that they were actually stolen. They
Yeah.
weren't given away, they were stolen. And then after
Mhm.
they were stolen, they were raised with these well-meaning people. Now, I mean, granted, think about being a parent who wanted a kid and then you find out later they were stolen. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, but we're not here to talk about them. So, but then these people tell them how bad their country was and how awful the culture is and how they saved them and saved their life. And I mean, they're the multiple of layers of messed up that goes on to this narrative is extreme. And a lot of it's getting unraveled. There's been some bills signed for um, uh, trafficking
Mhm.
that it
That
sounds
was
like
my
we,
next question. It was like,
yeah,
well, we can't talk about
it's
that without talking about this.
it's exactly right. And they're shutting a lot of it down and they're exposing a lot of it. And
Oh my God.
and there's it's interesting because they're trying to make it where you it's very hard to adopt international. And when you hear the reasons why from like their reasoning from doing it, some
Right.
people everybody hears different messages in it. Let's just say
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then the kids though are the same ones who are saying, "Yeah, I think it should be abolished," but they're also offended. On one hand, they're like abolish adoption, especially with transgender and trans culture and transracial, not transgenders, I'm sorry, transracial and culture. But I'm also offended that you're actually doing it. So it really confuses a lot of, I mean,
Mm,
right now we're
sure.
decomposing so many systems that there's just a lot of hot messes that's going on.
Well, and because our nation and our churches and so many of these well-meaning parents in that era are so steeped in white supremacy, although
Hmm.
we don't want to call it that, but so those children who remember their native land foods and comforts and family, who get moved out at 5 and dropped into this new school, new everything, new all of that, they also pick up then how to survive in this white culture. And they pick up the same biases and prejudices that put them in the double bind as they're trying to navigate their messy middle of life.
Yes,
That is,
that's exactly right.
yeah,
All of that, all of that is true. And it's so important to understand for so many, for our whole culture, even if you're not around adoptees, you are, and you don't even know it.
mhm,
If you might not be aware that you're around adoptees,
yeah,
there's someone you're probably working with that is one of those people. And
right.
to understand
Mhm. It's okay. We'll get that. Go ahead.
who understand um, the, we all can understand where this comes from, we can have a little bit more, one, compassion and two, awareness. And we got to be able to start healing too, right? And a lot of that comes in community.
Yes, it sure does. And it comes in a community that can sit in the discomfort of our parents did it wrong, or we could have done better, or if we had known then what we know now. I'm estranged from one of my children, and she has chosen to make her life story that she was an only child and now an orphan. Well, she wasn't. She was a middle child, I'm sorry. And and both of her parents were alive when she started that narrative. So she's telling my story and I don't even exist in it. All right. But the thing about estrangement, no matter how it comes, is that the solution, the shame is in the secret, and the solution is in community.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just the community of the wounded. The community of people who are able to sit with that discomfort without judgment, to hold space for the pain and the questions and the anger and the healing instead of picking a lane and saying, if you're going to be one of us, you have to be this way.
I, you're talking my jam right there. You're just so they can cut that. I'm going to say you're talking my jam right there.
Okay.
It is so true that it when we're in these places in these communities and in these places of healing, that we're not also just putting our hurt and not totally healed narrative on everyone. And when we are healed and we have if we're ever really truly, as we progress in our stages, not to force someone to think a certain way or be a certain way. And we see that in the community because we have adoptive parents and we have adoptees. We have an adoptive parent group that is meets weekly, and they have to have gone through a program, and then they go into a monthly together. It's called Better Together, and and they get to show up together after they've been and exposed to these new thoughts and some of them start getting a little on their high horse after they've seen what they've done to their children and they started changing ways. And then you have new parents coming in and they're almost wanting to berate those parents, right? Like, and we're like, you can't say that. You can't call it that. And we're saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. That is the opposite of what we're doing here. Community is unity, and that is not calling people out based upon
I like
them messing up on what they say or do. We have to be able to create a safe place for everyone. And a safe place doesn't mean because we use certain narratives or certain labels or certain things. A safe place is also for people who mess up so they don't refrain from everything they say. Like they can learn as they express. Right.
right, right. And to be seen, it's important.
Yes.
It's just important.
When you learn that you're not the only one, then your story is still your story. However, just being with people who have other stories or who think your way,
Mhm.
it helps you not feel like you're crazy or you're not alone. You're not alone. Oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. Because
Right.
no one wants to turn on their parent unless they have their own personal issues that they can't seem to get through, but
Right.
it's their issues. They
Right.
could be blaming the parent,
Yeah.
but the reality is it's their issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and everybody has. And I mean, everybody's got stuff, right?
We all
But
do.
I have seen in the estrangement community in general, there are two kinds of reactions. The first one is shock and denial and probably fawning, trying to, if I walk on eggshells long enough, things will go back to normal. And then when they find out they're not going to get it, then I call it the halo and the pitchfork. We tried the good way, and now here comes the pitchfork, and now the anger, and now all the things that go with that. While we defend, I did the best I could with what I had to work with. You are unappreciative. That's usually when the break happens, right? It's
Yeah.
not uncommon. And I would suspect that these well-meaning, and I'm going to assume well-meaning. I have on the back of my door, assume good intent. That's my method of my lifetime, until it becomes evident that it was not good intent. It was
Right.
selfish ambition. It was greed. It was profiling. It was whatever. And then you have to change your response as well,
Yeah. Yes.
assuming that they're doing the best they can do with what they had to work with.
Yeah.
Uh, but when there's estrangement and a fundamental misunderstanding, a misidentification of the needs of the child that you brought in from another country, that's, you know, I don't know how that original family or those parents ever get through their part of it without owning what they didn't know at the time, but they know now.
Absolutely. It is required for them to have to know, to own their part. It is
Yeah,
required.
yeah. Oops, where'd you go? Okay, got it.
Okay. Um, uh, So I love the subject of adoption because it has like almost all of the world's problems inside of it, right? Oh, it's
Doesn't
like
it?
it got so many
Yes.
layers inside of this because you do have to own it. There is a responsibility. Okay, so I never thought that I needed to think about what it might be like for my child of color to come into a farm with all and come on our farm with all white family in a community of all white people. So I never thought about that until they brought it up at 30 years later.
Right.
Okay, you were not, it was not your fault until now you're aware.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now you're aware, let's work on it. I'm sorry I'm 30 years into this and I
Mhm.
didn't notice these things. And now what can we do to work on it?
Simple.
It's that simple.
Simple. It's all reparations are that simple. Stop defending your position, have compassion. And when I work with people in 12 step about their amends list, and the best amends starts with here's what I did wrong, here's how it impacted you, how can I make it right? And then you shut up and listen. That means you're ready to listen and hear and shift. What can I do? Because you can't change the past. You can change the now, which will affect your future.
Uh, and it sure will. It'll help your grandparent, your grandkids. It'll
Yeah.
help the adoptive narrative as a whole.
Hmm.
Like the adoption's going to continue one
Yeah.
way or another. And in this political climate, it's going to ramp up here in the US, right? And so, whoa, let's slow down a bit and let's look at how these kids who are now in the generations that are speaking out, because, adoption's been going on for years and years, but you didn't talk about it.
Right.
So now we're
Family
hearing,
secret.
yes,
Yeah.
it was secret, and we don't talk about our emotions. Even if I know I'm adoption, we don't talk about our emotions. Everything's good, everything's right. But now
Mhm.
we have this culture of let's talk about it, right? And let's get into our community. And there's so many narratives that exist. And I'm someone who really believe in everyone having their own narrative.
Mhm.
And in that narrative, I look for people who, in their narrative, are looking for good in the world, who are doing, like you said, assuming good intent, who
Yeah.
are here to help the world for a better reason. Even
Yeah.
if they don't have a grandiose, I want to go help the world. They're
Yeah.
helping the world by being a good person,
Yeah.
right? And that we change the world by just that. So that's what I am looking for inside of every narrative. But there's an adoption where I was going with that was the birth parent narrative. There's a lot of narratives around birth parents,
Okay.
and there's a lot of not understanding. How could you ever? I don't understand it. They were drug addicts. They weren't worthy. They must have been in a bad place. There's so many, and they're the most underserved people in the adoption. We
Mhm.
call it mosaic because you have
Oh.
all the pieces of the adoption, right?
Mhm.
Um, but they're the most underserved people, and for a lot of reasons. One, because a lot of them don't stand out. Most of them have some sort of guilt or shame.
Mhm.
And three, the biggest narrative that I'm running into for well-meaning, growing adoptive birth parents is we gave up our right. We didn't think it was our right to heal or our right to be a part of that community or our right to like we gave over when we gave over our right, we felt like we gave over our whole all of our rights, right?
Mhm.
And so but we were less than. It's a we were a less than. They were better. They were smarter. They were, they're just, and we really lost a big piece in
Mhm.
that. So that's another reason that they're underserved is because I mean, as soon as I hear we're going to start a birth mother group, I'm like, oh, there's no need because I don't want people focused on me,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
no, and then I'm like, well, heck yeah, that sounds awesome now, but it's a very, oh, don't worry about me kind of thing that happens to the birth mom. And but there are so many narratives around birth moms, and they're not all just what the movies show. There are lots of things around birth moms and well-meaning birth moms, and those women, a lot of them, uh, every day think about that child, and every day when they go on to have children, probably are painting the picture of that child reuniting.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's that narrative. And then there's the how do we move forward? If all these things are happening in adoption, then what kind of world do we want if adoption is going to continue? How do we move forward with this? Like,
Mhm.
what does a different life look like? Does it mean open adoption? Well, let's talk about all the things that happen in open adoptions. We've got groups for that too. Okay, because that's hard. That's a hard one too. Whatever we don't have, we think the other way would be easier often. Like
Mhm.
I chose not to have an open adoption for my daughter. I was 15 and I
Mhm.
chose to have they allowed me, they were going to allow me to have an open adoption. And I chose no because I was 15 and I thought my adoption went well, just exactly the way it was. It's
Mhm.
healthy because I hadn't processed all that yet.
Yeah.
So it's healthy. Let's just do it the same way. So I said, no, let's not do an open adoption. But we wrote letters. We did write letters back and forth throughout the time.
Mhm.
And so what does it look like? And I'm going to use the word, it's starting to get used too much, but I'm going to use the word new world. In the new world of adoption, what
Mhm.
does that look like when we say adoption will continue? And we know all these things now in this hard, multi-layered issues that also exist in most families, but not all families, you know. And what does it look like? Well, it looks like leaning into community, having open dialogue. Everything you are about, Kim, everything you talk about,
Mhm.
that's what it looks like. When you're making the decision, before you make the decision, why are you bringing a child into your home anyway? Let's start there
Mhm.
because you want to feel complete. See, lots of these adoptees, they live this life of my job is to make you happy, to make you feel complete. My parents were so sweet. They're so sweet. I love my parents. You were my gift. We wanted you. They used to tell me you weren't just had, you were picked.
Yeah.
You were, and I'm like, okay, talk about putting the weight on someone's shoulders. Don't mess up. Don't screw up. That's not what they meant. That's
No.
what I heard,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wanted to so where does my only worth is to make people happy come from? Well, a lot of us have that for different reasons. Mine comes from that area. I think a lot of it comes from that area.
Mhm.
So let's talk about when you want a kid, why you want a kid, and what energy you're having that kid in. Do you feel incomplete? Well, let's work on that before you bring a kid into that feeling.
This is good advice for every mother at every age.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, how many marriages? Well, I know this is dysfunctional as hell. We'll just have a baby and that'll make it better. I do whole series on family systems where that backfires. Yeah.
it certainly does because it'll tear you down before it'll build you up.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I tell when someone says, well, I don't know when I want to have a kid. Do I do it young? Do I do it old? I say, you do it when you're so bored and you've experienced so much that you think that there is you're done and you're just going to go grow in some kind of crazy way and you're ready to grow in a crazy way and you feel very complete even if you didn't do it. That's when you do it.
That's right. And an extra million in the bank won't hurt. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And three psychologists on board, three coaches, surround yourself with community.
Oh my God. Honestly.
I
Yes.
thought it was going to be this enlightened experience. I'm like, this
Oh
is going to
yeah.
drive me straight to the loony bin
That's right. That's right. Every emotion, every day.
all the time. And everything
Yeah.
that is your trigger, it just triggered. Trigger,
Oh my
trigger,
God.
trigger, trigger, trigger,
Oh
trigger.
my God. And that never ends.
It
And
never
it
does.
never ends.
I
All the
bet.
things you swore you'd never say to your kids until you do.
I have said, I shamefully say the meanest things I've ever said to any human being in my life has been to my child. And I'm so ashamed of it. And my friends are like, Brooke, you didn't even say it. It wasn't even that mean. I'm like, yeah, but I felt real mean in it. You know?
Not the way I wanted it to come out.
That's right.
It
I'm
could have
like,
been
it may
worse.
not have sounded mean with the words, but man, if you just knew those feelings.
So, so
And
Brooke,
then the
we're at an
guilt.
hour. I've got to
Okay.
stop. But here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop here. I'm going to give a prompt to the audience. I'm going to let you give where can people reach you in that? And then I want to invite you back. If people engage in this across social media, and then there's an adoptees, particularly, or families who want to continue a dialogue, I think our part two would be powerful after we
Hmm.
get some audience engagement. And so, my prompt to you, my listeners, would be, do you have an adoption story that hasn't found its voice yet that you need to say, even if nobody's listening or watching, and especially if nobody's listening or watching. This is your opportunity. If you've got something that you have a question to ask, just put it in the notes and messages of this. Email me at info@onevoiceevolving.com, or Brooke, how do they reach you?
Brooke at itssimplyreal.com.
There you go. It's simplyreal.com. And we will continue this conversation if you have value and have an appetite for it. How's that?
Sounds great. Thank
Anything
you
you'd
for,
like to close with? Anyway, your business, anything, other things that are good?
I would like to ask the audience or ask the audience, what is your wish for the world? And think about that. And when you come up with what your wish is for the world, um, perhaps what kind of way can you show up in your story already having lived that wish?
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Brooke, for your time. Thank you, audience, for your patience. We hope to see you. Brooke and I are both in the Cove. So if you want to log in over at the Cove, it's like $15 a month and you can have direct access on the daily.
That's right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Kim.